Welcome to Creation Station Monthly. I'm Bob from Creation Station. This is our monthly show where we take a good long extended time frame to talk with two people in a creative field and talk about what they like to do that's creative, how they got into that, and where do they think they're going with it. If there's ever a topic you want to see, Creation Station at broward.org comes right to me. We have two fun guests today. Kenya Christensen, how are you doing today?
I'm doing well. Thanks for asking.
And we also have Meredith Clements from here in South Florida. How are you doing today, Meredith?
I'm great, thanks. Thanks for having us.
Oh, wonderful, wonderful. So you both have arts backgrounds. You both do art. You both kind of design, build. Kenya, you have your own studio. Tell us about what you do art-wise that way. And Meredith, you follow up on it and tell us what's going on with you. How do you think of yourself as an art person?
Well, I recently met a photographer from St. Louis doing a photojournalistic project, and I told him some of the things I like to do, and he said, I described myself as a jack of all trades, mastering something, and he said, well, actually, what you are is a talent stacker. And so I prefer to call myself a talent stacker now when it comes to art. So the kinds of things that I do at my gallery, Interview Art Gallery and Studios, is a little bit of everything. So I'm not only do I paint as an artist, but I'm also a digital artist. And I work with clients as far as print collateral and web collateral, motion collateral, lots of different types of campaigns. I'm about to embark on a new project, which I've never done before, which is being a production and art director for a short film. And so that's something else that's happening at the gallery. I am involved in the wine industry, and so I try to involve art and wine at my gallery.
That's how I found Kenya, is through her wine stuff.
Right, right. So I'm all the time trying to introduce people to wine and how to pair wines, how to choose the wines that they like, or that they don't even realize that they like, as well as focusing on helping and fostering emerging artists and artists of color who are just looking to be represented, who aren't represented currently. And so all of those things kind of happen in my space, and it's kind of marrying all of the things that I enjoy doing and that, as I referred to earlier, talent stacking all in one spot.
Interesting thing. Meredith, tell everybody what you do, because you're here, one of the senior people here for the cultural division here in Broward County.
Yeah, so in my day job, I am the director of marketing for the Broward Cultural Division. So we do the public art for Broward County, arts education, grants, community engagement, a lot of, in the marketing role, we do a lot of storytelling, either through videography or articles. We hire local writers. And but I really got interested in art, um, specifically as an artist, about maybe 8 years ago or so. I took a ceramics course, and I fell in love with it. And I said, this is what I'm going to do. I'm going to be an artist. At the time, I was an editor at the Sun Sentinel, which is the local newspaper. And so I had lunch with the director and chief curator of the NSU Art Museum here. And I said, can I work in the gift shop or anything? Like, I just kind of want like a 9 to 5 so I can also focus on art. And she ended up hiring me to lead their rebrand. So I was able to kind of harness the journalism skills that I had and turn them into like marketing and development, with an obvious passion for art. And shortly after the rebrand, the county came to me and asked me to do the same rebrand for the cultural division. So that's how I ended up at the county, which has been a really wonderful opportunity to impact the local community by providing accessible opportunities for art. And yeah, so, but as an art, wait, it's like kind of this twofold story, because I got really into ceramics, and then shortly before I started at the museum, I took a watercolor class, and then I I was fortunate. I had my first art critique, and it was with Julian Schnabel, who is a like pretty ostentatious, well-known, famous living painter. And of all the students in the class, he really took a liking to my watercolors. So I got really lucky because I had kind of like this professional who believed in me and who noticed my work like right off the bat. And so I was able to like use that confidence to continue a, an artistic career on the side while also working in the arts.
Nice. So now, between what you do at Cultural Division and kind of what you do with the gallery stuff, do you kind of think of that as is that art curation? Is that what what's the difference, I guess, for people between you're an artist and you create in all the various mediums you both have talked about versus being in charge of art, if there's such a thing? What kind of term should we actually use for that? Am I using curation in the wrong context?
No, I don't think so. I think you're using it correctly. Um, I know for me personally as an artist, I think a lot of people were surprised that I called my gallery something other than my name to represent myself as an artist. But as I alluded to earlier, it's a little bit more broad, and I have a kind of, I don't consider it a mission, but I just, it's something that it's a passion of mine to help other artists. I think it's very important to highlight local artists, especially in our community in Northwest Arkansas. We're growing and being recognized as a cultural destination, an art destination, with Crystal Bridges being here. And so with that being said, a lot of galleries focus on bringing artists in, and I want to focus on artists who are already here. So there is some curation that's involved in what I'm doing, because I'm out looking for those artists who are wanting that opportunity to show their artwork, and then also be part of exhibitions that I can name thematically and curate, as you said, in my space. And so my gallery is kind of split up into I've got studio space, and then I kind of have what I call my front gallery and the back gallery. So in the front gallery, I'm constantly curating artists and exhibitions that I feel like that are important to connect to the community, to bring people in. And then in the back of the gallery is really where I focus on my artwork and the artwork of a resident artist that I have, Leona Hunter Wade, who's 72 years old. She's an Army veteran, and I just feel very passionate about helping her evolve as an artist, even at 72 years old. And even though she's really only been practicing art for the last 15 years, to help foster her and push her along, challenge her as an artist, and have her be able to have a space to display that artwork at an affordable expense for her, so that she can experience it, is just it's important. So yes, there's curation involved, but there's also some self-promotion that goes into it for me as an artist.
What do you think, Meredith? What is a
Yeah, I think Kenya definitely does a lot more curation than I do. And but I think, if you think about it, we all do a certain amount of curation in our daily lives. Even as the marketing person here at the Cultural Division, I'm essentially curating the look and feel of our communications and how we're like visually communicating with the community. And so there's definitely a level of curation in there. So we did do a big immersive light and art sound festival called Ignite in January, which was very successful. And so there is definitely a level of curation in there in terms of like who we're hiring and how we're creating that experience. But mostly, I
that
think
the last experience I worked with you on, Meredith, with that big balloons, the chasing balloons, what was that called? A couple
Searching
years
for
ago?
giants.
Yeah,
Searching for giants.
We still have those things at Main Library. We still have the balloons here at Main Library. It's
Oh,
funny.
the
Yeah, that's
those
hilarious.
models, yeah. Yeah, we did a temporary public art exhibition that traveled throughout the county into all 9 county commission districts with inflatable art, and we tried to hire artists who were culturally representative of the different communities here in our county. Broward County is I think it's the 3rd largest majority county in the nation. So we just have such a wealth of a variety of cultures. So it was really fun to be able to kind of, work with Brazilian artists in the Brazilian neighborhoods, and then also do the marketing campaigns to target those people and in multiple languages and stuff like that, and see people come out and really enjoy that, because inflatable art is pretty accessible. So it was a good experience.
So you guys are both doing stuff where you're working with local people, like you're just saying, and people who are getting into art probably late in life, or obviously very late in life here for that. Tell us about what your both early experiences. Were you always an artist? Did you practice in the mud? Did you draw on the wall? What did you do as art, quote unquote, and how was that accepted in the family?
You go ahead, Meredith. You go first.
That's a good question. I was fortunate because my mom actually had a very strong passion for art. And I think after my little sister was born, she stopped being a social worker and decided to be a docent at the Art Institute of Chicago. So I kind of grew up going to a lot of museums and kind of immersed in art, and had placed a strong value on that. But I never technically practiced art until maybe around college. I would experiment with painting, and I did a decent amount then, but I would never have considered myself an artist or even all that creative. So it wasn't until I took a formal art class, again, about 8 years ago, that I was able to really expand that profile, and I did the Artist Way, which is a wonderful book that I would highly recommend to any level of artist. It's kind of like a 12-step program on removing any roadblocks to your creativity. I think what I hear so often is people say, "Oh, I have no creativity or I'm not creative," and "Oh, I can't draw," and et cetera. But we all possess a certain level of innate creativity, and it's more or less just a matter of being able to tap into that and experiment and kind of just develop your own style. Does that answer your question? I'm sorry.
There are no right answers. This is just, what do you think? What did you experience? How do you think? Because especially in art, of all the creative stuff we've ever talked about on this show, art is so subjective to what you particularly think or want to do, kind of stuff. Kenya, you're talking about mixing mediums from paint to wine to all these things. How did you what was it? How early of an age did you start messing around with all those different things?
It's so funny we're talking about this because I recently was profiled by a journalist here in our area, and for the paper, and it went statewide, and she was really kind of digging deep and asking, where did this start? And so it made me kind of think back. Actually, it was childhood. I came from a family that's very artistic, just naturally. None of them were academically trained. They were just wonderful artists. And so having my father and my uncles and aunts that were all kind of fostering that ability in me, I ended up drawing the cover of my 6th grade yearbook. um, and it was just like, and I won. And the other 2 students that were beside me as runners up went on to become artists as well. In fact, one of them I had in the gallery as a guest artist, who still lives in Kansas City, was able to have her first gallery experience at Interview Art Gallery Studio. And there she was, a runner up as our yearbook competition artist, So I would definitely say all through elementary school, middle school, high school, it was all about art, yearbook, editor, anything I could do with publications. And then I ended up going to school for information systems and business management, or, business administration, which was nothing to do with art. So kind of going in the same vein as my rest of my family, not being academically trained as an artist, but always falling back on that. And then really just taking a deep dive into the industry with no experience at all, but having a passion for it and having people who recognize my talent along the way, who, I would say, use the word foster me along. So in the last 25 years, I've had the opportunity to work, from working for a commercial printer to doing trade show display graphics to a sign shop. And then I worked for a company that specialized in doing point of purchase and concept designs for Walmart vendors, because we're in the home of Walmart here in Northwest Arkansas. And then to full service ad agency to be able to work as a lead art director on so many projects, print, web, TV, all those things. So my career has just spanned. I kind of call myself the Forrest Gump of 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 art, as far as digital and new media, and then now fine arts. I've just kind of landed myself in these positions and these opportunities, and been fortunate to have people help me along the way, which is why I'm so passionate about helping other artists kind of find their way. So yeah, it's like I did it, someone helped me, now it's my turn to help other people. And I'm still learning and experiencing new things. So yeah, it's always been there. Art's always been there.
Yeah, I like to say that art changed my life, and now it's my opportunity to change other people's lives by bringing more art into their lives or their careers.
Yes, I can 100% agree with that. In fact,
And that's, oh, sorry, go ahead.
I was just gonna say I reconnected with my old high school yearbook teacher, who I found him on Facebook. And, I told him, he's like, is this Kenya Easter that I had in class, back in 1993? And it's like, yep, it's me. So we're able to connect. And he's just like, I'm so proud of you. And I said, I'm so thankful to you because you changed the trajectory of my life as far as being an artist.
What do you think about that, Meredith? 'Cause you're bringing in people with the cultural division. You guys are always looking for artists to do work around the county, or doing all sorts of different stuff. How do you find those? How do you reach out because you're not really a mentor that way. You're more of a, ooh, art
Yeah,
is
it's more like mass mentor,
yeah.
it's more so providing capacity building opportunities for local creatives. We actually do or I'm not trying to take credit for it, but we've
No, do it.
my
Take it.
my colleagues have been putting on something called Artists as Entrepreneur Institute for 14 years now. And then during the pandemic, I had to figure out how to do this virtually, which was a very fun, creative challenge in and of itself, and also included some, pretty quite a bit of curation. Now that you pointed, going back to that comment, but so we're starting that again this June. So it's a month-long seminar where we teach artists the different business skills that they need to have for a successful career, like taxes and writing a business plan, marketing, branding, best platforms to sell their works on, et cetera. I think what's fun too about the art world is that
Are you doing that virtual again?
no, this year we're going to be back in person.
Okay.
So it'll be at the Small Business Development Center at FAU. But the art world is just always evolving. So there's always more opportunities to be learning or expanding your practice. And, it never really gets old.
How do you guys think where this is going? Because one of the things we always talk about on the show is, with what you're doing in your creative field, can you be can you turn this into a career? Both of you have obviously been able to pull that one off. How hard is it, do you think, for someone to get to maybe to the level where you are, rather than just being the artist and being able to create, being able to paint or do ceramics or do whatever, as you guys mentioned? Where do you think it is to be able to get to that next step of mentoring someone else, to move someone else along? Where's that process? How do you think that how does someone get into that process, I guess?
I would say that it's a lot easier now than it was 20 or 30 years ago, with digital media being such a huge factor in what artists are able to tap into now, and also, social media. As a business person, I try to really emphasize that when I talk to new artists, and how to, form an LLC, how to do your taxes, how to make sure you have a profit loss statement.
That sounds like
How
that
to,
artist is entrepreneur class.
yeah,
Exactly.
how to apply for grants. What grants are you more likely to get versus others, and um, how do you work? Especially, I think the number one thing is, how do you make connections in the community to propel yourself forward in getting opportunities as an artist right here in your neighborhood. So all of those things, I think, are important for me, that I can give to a new artist. But as far as them being able to make it a career and make money at it, like I said, alluded to earlier, it's like the social media and new media with the NFTs. A lot of these new young artists surpassing me as an artist as far as the amount of income they're generating. So it's, I can help on the business side, and then as far as creativity, these young people, and well, people in general, are just really showing what they have. And so like I said, it's just about making sure that they make good, sound financial decisions as they're advancing in their career.
Yeah, I'm really glad you said that, Kenya, because I think that the difference between a successful artist and just, somebody who is not successful is really actually having those entrepreneurial skills. And it's actually quite ironic, because that's the one thing they do not teach in art school. That's, focused on form, theory, color, the whole, technical aspects of formal training. And anybody can be an artist, but to be successful at it, you actually have to do all of those things that Kenya is saying. And that's really, I think, the key factor. So exposing yourself to as many professional development workshops, programming, et cetera, it can be really helpful.
So my next question is take us on a totally different tangent for a moment. Oh, by the way, Meredith, I did flash up the book that you recommended, and in the brief time that we've been talking, it's all been checked out. all the all the digital copies, both audio and ebook, have been checked out. So
Nice.
yeah,
Nice.
that's a good thing.
Yeah.
Let me ask you about equipment. Normally, I would ask an artist, okay, what kind of equipment do you use for, making your ceramics or doing your painting or doing whatever? In this case, what kind of equipment do you need to open an art gallery or to do all of these art exhibitions that you do all around the county, Meredith? What kind of equipment are you guys thinking about that way, whether it's physical or the social media type of things being connected? How do you pull all those different threads together into making something that can look at that and draw those people in for you?
Yeah, I mean, I'm gonna actually answer that with as my artist hat, and I kind of forget this, but when I was becoming an artist, the local art store here, Pearl, was going out of business, and so every weekend they would further reduce everything in the inventory. And I honestly credited that to my ability to become an artist because it just allowed me to go spend hours looking at what all the different supplies are, thinking about different ways of incorporating multiple mediums, and also really kind of stocking up on supplies so that I could experiment with my own creativity and test out what works, what doesn't. So those types of tools, you know, are really helpful, and they can be a little expensive. So I got lucky with my timing. But Kenya, maybe you have something more profound to say.
Well, I was, opening the gallery. I toured lots of local galleries and then galleries outside of the area in other states to see what kind of hardware that they were using to make sure that I, just wasn't putting up just any old thing. So there was an investment made for a gallery hanging system. I've always been a Mac-based artist, and so making sure that I had equipment as far as like a computer and video camera and everything that goes with that, all of the software, the Adobe Creative Suite, all those things, they were all initial investments. And thankfully, Mac hardware, Apple hardware stays pretty consistent for long periods of time. So it was a big cost up front, but then it lasted 10 years. And I just recently bought new equipment that will, I'm hoping, take me another 10 years. So there's the hardware part, those kinds of things. But then I mentioned software, but as an artist, what I actually work on, I do a lot of mixed media. And so I upcycle or recycle things to use in my art. I buy things on sale, as you mentioned, being fortunate to, kind of not needing things right away, just kind of waiting for things to go on sale, working with other artists, collaborating with other artists who may have materials that they are getting rid of, or trading or bartering amongst artists. That happens a lot. Always experimenting with new mediums to, if one gets a little bit pricey, well, what if I use this? Or how can I expand what I already have? Or use, latex paint, anything in order to be able
All the
to get
supply
that.
chain issues have hit
all,
artists too, huh?
yeah, or using fabrics as in priming those and stretching those. I make a lot of my own stretcher bars, so I'm buying lumber from Lowe's, or I'm
Okay, tell
using
us tell us what a stretcher bar is.
so it's kind of a frame or framing system that you would then wrap your canvas on to in order to make a substrate to paint on. Does that make sense? So it's
Yeah,
like
yeah, yeah.
if you were to go to, any art store and buy a gallery wrapped canvas. So instead of buying something like that, I am literally creating the frame and hand stretching the canvas.
Gotcha.
And I
Okay.
use scrap, people have scrap lumber left over. And, I like painting large format, so it works out really well for me to do that. And then I buy remnants of fabric, and I prime those and paint that on those types of things. And so
It's cool.
not only is it affordable to do that, but it's also makes my artwork, it feels more unique. It's not just like any art, just any art you just buy at any store. This is really handmade, and it has that feeling to it, and very, one of a kind. And so as an artist, that's even more important, for me to be able to do that. But I think the main thing is just being able to have relationships with other artists and kind of having that community that you're supporting each other and being able to help each other with supplies, because sometimes it's hard. Not all of us can afford the nicest brushes, but those of us who can, maybe, we buy a few extra and we trade for something else with other artists.
I'm glad you mentioned found objects too, because I think that was really critical for the success of my artistic career. I utilized nature in my clay building, and no one was doing anything like that at the time. And I would, roll flowers and leaves and you know, branches and anything that had any type of texture through the clay roller. I forget what it's even called now. And or just do hand built slabs on a brick sidewalk to create that unique texture and build it some depth. And just going back to the artist way real quick is one of the parts of that program is to take yourself on an artist date every week. And so it can include anything from just taking yourself to a movie or going to a museum. They encourage you to do it alone. One of my favorite ones to do was to go to the dollar store and just look at what all they were selling. And you know, maybe you can find some random like colored sand that you can incorporate, and it's, you know, everything's $1, so you can kind of just really experiment. And I think doing those types of things and looking for art supplies or hardware or what have you in places that you wouldn't normally think can be very fruitful. I mean, I also am quite a bit of a repurposer and used to go around on bulk trash night once a month in my neighborhood and just, you know, scope out like the palettes or whatever people had, and then you start creating furniture out of it. Or I built a whole art studio with like an old door that I found, and I put it on concrete blocks, and so I was able to have a big enough of a workspace in my apartment and not actually pay for like a big fancy desk.
That's awesome.
Nice.
I was gonna when you said dollar store, that reminded me of Ross, the store Ross Dress for Less. I think most metropolitan areas have one. Um, there are times when I just want like a big canvas or a cheap canvas because I have I'm doing paint the tour or something at the gallery, and I need those. So I go to Ross, and it's amazing. And everybody's gonna start going to Ross and buy out all the canvases now.
I
But
do
yeah,
that too.
you
And
do.
also even thrift stores, you know, they'll have old
Uh-huh.
art or frames. You know, frames are so
I
expensive.
I just did that. I just did that. I went to a flea market and they had some old art, and the frames are from the 1950s, and it's just like they were perfect. Beautiful, ornate frames. That the mat I'm probably gonna, recycle, but the actual frame itself was just, my God, it was awesome. And then the price was, something that was more approachable than custom framing, which I will say, you mentioned the store going out of business. I recently ran up on a framing shop that went out of business and donated all of this framing and molding material that I ended up with. I mean, 10-foot pieces that I had to use a truck to move. And I sent it to, friend's shop, and he built frames for me for huge pieces. Well, not huge pieces, but they're like 36 by 36 artwork, where the materials I would have never been able to afford up front, but I got it for free, for free, and I had a friend build it for me. So there's always like again, trading and collaborating with other artists in order to, for everyone to
Yeah.
be able to create.
I used to go on Craigslist or OfferUp on the free section just to see what was out there. And one time I got like 150 feet of 8 foot tall canvas that needed to be stretched and wrapped, like Kenya was saying. Um, and it was just, you know, such a find. And even at the dollar store one time, I found water guns on my artist date. And so I went home and put watercolor paint in the water gun and sprayed them on a big canvas. And uh, you know, it's really fun to experiment with different types of things.
Nice. That is very cool. I think Kenya's going to try and rejoin us here.
Okay.
Yep. She just dropped. She'll be back in. Tell us about size wise. When she gets back in, I'll hit her. Because down here in Broward, huge metropolis, 17th largest county in the country. So we've got, 2 million people, something around here that you're out there and reaching. What's your experience been? Because I know you also have done small town stuff. outside of Broward, right?
Mm-hmm.
Tell us about the difference in between that, about accessibility for people.
I'm not sure I understand the
So
question.
where do you think, because someone who's listening to this who's up in Central Florida or someplace out of a big thing,
Sure.
they're gonna have a different experience with some accessibility to certain things. But what do you think
Sure.
the best
Yeah. So,
option is?
yeah. So one of my first starts with ceramics was, there you are, was
Yeah,
with
I
the
was
Renegade.
lost everyone for I lost everyone for a second. I'm sorry. I don't know when. I think I missed
Back
out
forward.
everything that you just said.
What,
I apologize. It just
nope, we were
clear.
just getting started on the idea of accessibility
Okay.
of that and saying because down here in Broward, we've got a big 2 million people county down here, huge place. And you're in Arkansas in a much smaller community. And Meredith was just beginning to explain about how accessibility works between four people.
Yeah, so my first successful experience selling ceramics was actually through Renegade Craft Fair, which takes place, they host them in Chicago, New York, LA, Seattle, London, etc. And so I actually applied to the one in Austin, Texas, which is where my family is from, and I was accepted, which was very exciting. Getting accepted to that is a big deal. And so I went home for Thanksgiving one year, and my father woke up the day after Thanksgiving and drove me from the ranch in the pickup truck with all my ceramics loaded up in the back, and I sold my art for 2 days at this huge fair. And those are really good opportunities to build your email list, for future communications, making connections. Even just the artists that I worked with, or who were stationed next to me, have become parts of my life. One of the artists was actually from maybe Tallahassee or somewhere in Florida, and she is, after I started working at the museum, she ended up coming down and bringing some of her work that we sold in the gift shop there. And so, yeah, going back to what Kenya said previously, is so much of that is about connections and fostering those connections.
Else, can you? I know just a popular conception around the country. Arkansas, come on now, you can't have any art galleries in Arkansas. Tell us what's the difference there for making it accessible in a smaller town like where you are.
Right. Well, I mentioned Crystal Bridges. We are very fortunate to have the Waltons, and especially Alice Walton, who is such a lover and collector of art, to spend the money and to gift our area with such a beautiful museum, which has become a destination, an art destination. With that has come all kinds of other opportunities. They've expanded on Crystal Bridges by adding the Momentary, which also focuses on visiting artists of all types, performing, musical, visual artists. We have so many nonprofits that are starting to really thrive now because of Crystal Bridges, because of these local organizations tapping into local artistry, getting getting artists' names out regionally, not just in the state of Arkansas, but the Kansas, Missouri, Texas, Oklahoma, Nashville, or excuse me, Tennessee. So all these opportunities are being afforded to us because of the attention of the Waltons. And we're about to have a music festival here, bigger than anything I've ever seen happen here, called the Format Music Festival, which is getting national attention and bringing artists from all over the country to Northwest Arkansas, kind of billing it as the new Oz. It's here, right here in our backyard. So I think all of those things combined are working in the favor of overturning the misconceptions or the connotation that people automatically have about Arkansas in general. And certainly with organizations like Mid-America Arts Alliance and Artist 360 and Artist Inc., these organizations that are providing grants to artists that are substantial grants, to help us to continue, help us to become artists with a livable wage, which is very important. I hear that a lot. How do we help our artists make a livable wage? You know, earn enough to keep them going, and dispel the starving artist trope. So all of the, it's Arkansas, yes, but also Arkansas, yes.
Are
We're
you
Right.
in
I like that. I like
Bentonville?
that.
so I live in Springdale. My husband has a restaurant in Fayetteville, right across from the campus, and then my gallery is downtown Rogers. And I work with organizations in Bentonville. So it's like, we're becoming, yes, we're all separate cities or separate municipalities, but we really view ourselves as one big, you know, for lack of a better word, a metropolitan area, even though I wouldn't really call it metropolitan at this point. It's getting there. We're all collaborating creatively to, look at Arkansas or Northwest Arkansas as an arts and cultural destination where people come in and want to be here for that specific reason.
That's what we kind of do with, because we're just north of Miami, in Dade County, and then Palm Beach is just north of us. And so we kind of bill it as like the arts coast, like, arts all along the coast. But yeah, I mean, I also think that a huge part of the success of Crystal Bridges is that because they were so well funded, they're able to provide free admission. So with the exception of like maybe their North Forest Lights show and some special exhibitions like that, I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but the majority of admission is free to the
Absolutely. You're absolutely
and to the
right.
momentary. Yeah, I
And
mean, I know.
even I was going to say, even the admissions, when you do have to pay for those, they're still um, affordable. And Crystal Bridges has community programming where they're going out and making sure that there are tickets being given out to communities that may not feel connected to the museum. They're trying to do their
You
part.
know how they do that?
Well, they have, it's actually called CB to You, so Crystal Bridges to You. So they're collaborating with local artists to bring programming into these communities, into the Marshallese community, into the Latinx community, so into the Asian community. They're reaching out and working with artists to bring people in, and then at those events, they're giving out tickets for those exhibitions that may otherwise cost money. So
That's really great.
yes, I mean, so
Yeah.
that's and working with me too as a local artist, and what I'm trying to do and what I'm interested in doing, what I'm doing at my gallery, they're working with me too. So I'm just so thankful for Crystal Bridges and the direction that they're going with diversity, equity, and inclusion, and making sure that all voices creatively are being represented um, within the gallery, within the museum's infrastructure.
That's great. Yeah, I actually, so Miami has a lot of wonderful museums, but admission is just, $30, $40 a person, which just seems
Yeah.
astronomical to me, in my opinion. But one of my friends found out that the library system will give away tickets to the museum. So you can go to your library or log in online. And Bob, I don't know, do we even do that in Broward?
Some we
Okay.
participate with museums, Museum of Discovery and Science and things like that. Over the summer, we're giving away some passes to some of the places in Miami also and things like that for exactly that reason, to try and be more inclusive, to try and make everything accessible. That's a good thing. I mean, art has always been, to my mind at least, art's always been inclusive. It's just you're in art and it doesn't, the artist. Okay, and Meredith has got her eyes up now, and tell me, how is it not? Or maybe not speaking. I'm speaking in the wrong thing. It's not inclusive. Or tell us, you two tell us, where do you think art was and is going in that whole being inclusive for people, both as art, both bringing in a diverse artist, but bringing in a diverse audience.
Yeah, I'm not going to speak to the diverse artist part right now. I'm going to let Kenya do that. But I mean, I honestly think that that's kind of one of the art world's biggest challenges is that it's very inaccessible. I think people think of art as being this kind of like pretentious, you know, for influential people or affluent people only. And so when I worked at the art museum, breaking down those barriers of really trying to bus in the children or you know taking art into the community, that that was really my biggest challenge and continues to be, which is why I asked how Crystal Bridges markets to these different neighborhoods, because it's something that we strive for daily here, whether it's, you know, providing capacity building workshops in Creole or Spanish and or, you know, just finding ways to break down that barrier to really make art accessible is, I think, one of the biggest things that inspires me to do my job on a daily basis. But I don't know, Kenya, what are your thoughts on that? Do you agree with that, or do you see it
No,
differently?
I 100% agree with exactly what you said. And especially, I mean, that's why I feel so passionate about my gallery focusing on artists of color, because I feel like not only is there this idea that museums and galleries are completely inaccessible to people of economic, not of economic means to afford to be able to buy the artwork. So if they can't buy it, they don't want to go see it because it's out of something that they can't attain to. So it's um, that is something to overcome, but then also making sure that there are artists being represented culturally in what's being shown at the museum and in art galleries. And that's something that it's going to take people like myself, people like you, the library system to uh, constantly be looking for ways to make sure that everyone feels included in the art world. Um, I mean, look at wine. Wine is another one of those industries where I feel like everyone or most people know about wine or know enough about wine to want to try it or drink it, but to actually be leading in the industry or creating the wine, um, that's not happening for people of color. It's slowly coming along. I mean, the Court of Master Sommeliers really got called out here in the last few years about that accessibility for and inclusivity of women and people of color. So I just think it takes people like ourselves to bring attention to it, to constantly bring attention to it, and to try to be leaders in that that space.
Yeah, and I think, you know, in recent years there has been a lot of people getting called out for not having done that well, you know, like big name establishments. And there's even like an Instagram account about you know, museums and who's on their board and companies who are on their board. And you know, I can't remember the names of them, but I mean, it does take a lot of advocacy, and you know, it's a continuous fight to ensure equitable access and opportunities.
Mm-hmm. And as an artist, I try to um, make my works accessible to people. So as so that owning a piece of artwork, an original piece of artwork, isn't something that's so far fetched for a person to be able to have, and at the same time, exposing my community to my artwork as well, and my voice as a Black woman it's just so important, and it's not just about me. It's really about other people who look like me or who have or they want to hear my voice. And so I've got to be one to put that out there.
Let me follow up that a question that I didn't think to ask earlier was, so out of your experiences in the field right now, have you changed how you're creative based on that? From when you started getting into the field of doing this sort of stuff till now, what have you consciously had to change, or maybe it was an unconscious just growth path that you did to reach kind of these ideas of being more inclusive and stuff like that, or inclusive in all ways of all the extra art types that you've done, or bringing more people in both ways?
For me
How do you think that
personally,
that path in your mind went?
for me, I've just really focused on being more intentional and not just throwing darts at a board. If that makes sense, like I'm just gonna throw and see what sticks. Instead of doing that, I take my time, I slow down, and I'm very intentional about everything that I do. I feel like it's quality over quantity. So if I take my time and I craft something or craft an event or an experience or a piece of artwork or a collaboration, it's for a purpose. I'm trying to always work towards what my mission is and what my values are. So as not to be wasting my time or other people's.
What do you think about Meredith?
Yeah, I mean, I think in the mediums themselves, I used to do large ceramics that had to be fired in a kiln, and the studio where I was working actually had a fire, and so all the sprinklers went off and like ruined all of our work. And so I kind of had to start fresh after that, which is partly why I then pivoted to watercolors. Well,
Fire,
way
all the sprinklers inspired you to do watercolors. That's
way
a nice segue. I
way
like
less
that.
maintenance. But I did also eventually turn, because renting a studio space, especially ceramics, can be quite costly. And so I eventually kind of got it just probably on one of my dollar store excursions. I picked up some polymer clay and I started working with that and making jewelry, and I can fire it in my home oven. So
Oh, okay. Cool.
like this type of kind of, you know, little crafty stuff, that was like a great way for me to continue being creative and to create to and also, you know, another avenue of items to sell.
Nice.
Um,
So I got one more question for you because we've already gone closing in on the hour here already for everybody. Um, I want to hear what your successes are, because everyone who's an artist knows you have lots of failures. That's the whole thing, is you have something and you crumple it up and you throw it away or whatever. Tell us, what's that success that gave you that spark to say, okay, I want to continue. Maybe not, I don't mean in something you've created, because Meredith, I've seen your jewelry stuff on in your Instagram, and it's really fun. But in your job as like the curation leading something, what's that spark? What's that success that you kind of hold there as that shining light that, yeah, I'm doing a good job with this?
I mean, for me, it's really impact and accessibility, and you know, the more diverse and broad my audiences can be,
Give me an
the
example.
better.
Give me something good. Give me something. Pick your favorite out of all of your favorites. What's that one happy thought that you're like, yeah, that's the one where we clap our hands and Tink gets her wings back.
It's tough. You know, the pandemic was really rough. I worked harder than I've ever worked. I'm honestly still tired. And but being able to like really provide impactful programming, and in whether it's keeping people engaged and just giving them something to do, or providing workshops and, you know, professional training through the pandemic in a very professional broadcasting setting, that felt very good. And then, I mean, really Ignite was a pretty big success for us. We didn't have we far surpassed our expectations, and we ended up having a line around the park every single night just to see the art. And so to see that in our own community was really wonderful. We had 10,000 visitors over the course of 5 days, and that there were points during that where my boss and I were just like, I guess we did it. We did something right.
Nice.
This is
Nice.
a success. So I don't know. I'd have to think about it maybe more.
That's a good. I like that. I
But
like that idea. Kenya, what do you think? What's your shining light that you hold up there and say, yeah, I did a good job?
You know, I've been fortunate to have a few things happen where, I mean, opening my own gallery and having a studio and making it a year. Just so proud of myself. Like, I lasted a year, yes. And I did my ribbon cutting on the anniversary of the 1 year anniversary. Finally had time to slow down and say, okay, let's cut the ribbon on this baby, you know. And already looking to for bigger space and more opportunity to add more artists and to expand it. But I think in the last 3 years, probably the Reflections of the Black Experience exhibit that started in February of 2020 that featured the 1619 project was really probably the success that I didn't see coming, because I did it as a labor of love. And from the idea of, it kind of launched as an idea from a mentor in the area who's now since moved on to Chicago, but it was her hope to introduce the 1619 project to Northwest Arkansas. And this is before it became a political lightning rod in the state of Arkansas, as many people saw that play out in the summer of 2020. But to have that exhibit, to work with 12 artists and over 100 pieces of artwork and historical research that I did personally to create this exhibit, and then to see that go on to into 2021, to expand it to include student artwork, and then in 2022 year I went from, like, I think I had 15 artists in 2021 to 24 artists in 2022 in my gallery, with let's see how many pieces of artwork. I think I had about 160 pieces altogether of artwork, and that included some written word, some 3D artwork, as well as lots of historical references uh, for the state of Arkansas and how it relates in the timeline that I built, you know, using the 1619 project as the framework, and to see how the community responded to that was astounding. And it really just brought home to me, not really, I guess I always knew, but it really just made it more impactful that these conversations still need to be had, and people are still interested in having them, despite what we see in the media, you know, especially on social media and on the news, where you see so many people fighting and arguing with each other. But when you're in person and you're surrounded by art and you're surrounded by the history and by the facts, to see conversations happen that I felt like were meaningful and impactful, and to artists to have done that and brought that to the community, that to me was a success. That's what I hold up high in my heart, is those conversations and the reactions that I got from people, not only with the art, but then also being able to highlight Black-owned wineries at my gallery, you know, as a
Yeah.
reception, and to bring people in to realize that, you know, was it 1% of the wine industry is represented by people of color, you know. And here we are, I'm in downtown Rogers. I'm a Black woman who has a business, who has an art gallery, and who's also trying to make her way in the wine industry. It's like, it's a lot. It's heavy sometimes, but at the same time, it's just right where I want to be. And so all those things combined would definitely be something that I hold up as, as a success. Has it been easy? No. Have I, am I a millionaire? No. But I'm rich in the experience and in the relationships and in the engagement that I was able to have. And that's what makes me happy. At the end of the day, that's what it's about.
That is
We
awesome.
actually did a similar exhibition at Arlick, which is one of the libraries in the
African American
community.
Research Library and Cultural Center, for those not here in
Oh,
Broward.
Thank you. And it's based in the historically Black community here in Fort Lauderdale. And we had 12 Black artists and designers, and it focused on the history of that community. And we hired photographers to go from house to house and take pictures of some of the photos in their photo albums to put together kind of like a really comprehensive historical view of the community. And the exhibition was actually curated by one of my colleagues in the public art department, and it was designed kind of similar to a shotgun style home, which is common in Black neighborhoods. And so you kind of walked in and had this immersive experience, and different types of, poetry and furniture design. And I was very involved in helping that happen. And even though I wasn't the curator, but it was such a rewarding experience. And the Architects newspaper actually named it as one of the top exhibitions to see in 2021. And it was next to the Met. So it was pretty rewarding.
Awesome.
And then also the marketing aspects of that, of like geo-targeting the community and serving ads in Creole and et cetera. And then we did finish it with some artist talks that were virtually produced. And that was, yeah. Sorry, I didn't mean to piggyback, but
It's a great
I
thing.
kind of
No,
forgot
no,
about that one.
it's a good thing to
so that
brag.
sounds, I was going to say,
People
it
don't
sounds
do, yeah.
amazing. I wish I had known about I would have,
Yeah.
because my husband is from Florida and we travel to Florida several times a year. I need to keep it's hard enough keeping up with what's happening here, but I need to make a better, do better at keeping up with what's happening in Florida, apparently, so that I could, and other
You let us know
states.
next time you travel down. Can you let us know? We'll give you a tour of the
Yeah.
libraries.
Yeah.
Oh my,
There's some
Exactly.
awesome stuff happening.
yes,
Yeah.
I would love that.
Yeah.
We'll do that. And I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you both so much for doing this. This is a really good conversation, I think, for people to hear and to participate in about what's going on here, and that I guess art curation is an actual thing. So I wasn't too far off. That's not so bad. Hey, I got one win out of this. That's my win for the day. How's that? Let me throw up our ending slide here. As always, our guests' information will be there on the show page for you. And you can always email me, creationstation@broward.org, and I'll be able to forward any of your questions or comments along to our guests. Thank you, everyone, for coming today, and we'll see you next month.
Thanks so much, Bob. And